Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hit and Hustle from OurSportsDaily.com. I'm your host, Greg Flammang, and with me, as always, is Jamie Uyeyama, Mr. Jamie University. It is Thursday, June 12th. It's the last day of school for my kids, Jamie. And we're going to have a buy or sell day for you today, talking about Notre Dame recruiting, talking about, I'm going to talk a little Bronte Johnson, talk about Jeremiah Love as a possible Heisman candidate, as a kind of like, is he going to make a run at that? And some other things that come up as well. Talk about Arkansas. That kickoff time got announced yesterday. So thank everyone for tuning in. If you like what you hear, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell so whenever it is, we are going live. Links to the podcast are in the description below. And as always, the show is brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ and all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches. With over a decade of making the best custom clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2025. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt or bomber jacket, or the perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. Jamie, you keep going in and out. I don't know if you've noticed that on your end, but like your camera keeps turning on and off.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. No,
we'll
it doesn't. Okay.
Yeah, we'll monitor that because just now it happened, but I don't know.
Oh, it's not showing up for me right now.
People in the chat, let me know if that's showing up for you as well. Maybe it's just on my end, and that's being weird. So just hopefully it's okay. All right, here we go. Talking about Notre Dame recruiting, obviously it's a very big recruiting weekend for Notre Dame. They have got a number of players on campus that they really would like to land. Joey O'Brien, Kari Adams, Evan Jacobson, Caden Finley, Devin Fitzgerald, Nick Reddish, Grayson McKeo, and Braden Robinson are on campus right now. Jamie, why don't we do a quick like buy or sell on just a couple of these guys, and then we'll move on to something else. Okay. Let's do buy or sell. Devin Fitzgerald commits to Notre Dame after this visit.
Well, I think he's announced. He said he already had his like announcement date. So
right. I don't want to say he's going to commit to Notre Dame. Just like
after the weekend, visit, he will
ends up at Notre Dame. Yeah, he ends up.
I'm going to buy.
Okay.
That he commits to Notre Dame. I think this is the offer that he wanted for a long time. I also think this is like kind of what his dad wanted as well.
Yeah.
And I just have a feeling that they're going to kind of seal it up this weekend, and that'll be, he's going to end up in the class.
I think this is one where, if they didn't end up with him, then I think you could fairly look a little side eye at Mike Brown and be like, hey, like this is one you kind of got to close. Like the kid on Finley one, it's a difficult.
They didn't offer late, but yeah.
Well, they offered late, but like he really wants them. I mean, the fact that they offered late is also kind of, where were you kind of thing. But it's just like you should be able to beat the teams that they're also going up against for Devin Fitzgerald in this one. Like it's not like he's trying to go to Arizona State. It's not a local thing. It's not like Caden Finley and Cohen Brown with Texas, right? It's not like that. And look, I don't want to bury Mike Brown. Like he hasn't. Maybe he commits to Notre Dame and everything's fine, right? And there's no big problem. But I think it's something he would. It would be a big deal if they were able to land him. You had put him, we put him in the like kind of the dream class scenario. You had added him in that situation where I think I had Cohen Brown maybe ahead of him. No, I'm sorry, you had Braden Robinson. We can get to him in a second. We had Braden Robinson ahead of him. But why would you have? But just to kind of rehash for people, why would you have put Devin Fitzgerald in the kind of the Notre Dame's kind of got to land him type situation?
Well, because I think he's a boundary. I think he's going to play in the boundary. So I think that's one of the biggest things is that it's like a need, right? It's a need for them in the class. I don't think that they got a guy who was, a definitive boundary in the class before that. So I think that's like something where you're always looking at like kind of like what they did before and where they are, like kind of going forward. And obviously, you're not going to get Malachi Fields. Those type of guys aren't going to be out there every recruitment, right? Like, or every time in the portal, right? So, I think that's because of that. That's why I think he's there. And then also too, I think I think when there's guys that if they really want a school, and I mean they got to be good enough, right? You have to be obviously good enough to go to Notre Dame and play at Notre Dame. But when someone really wants it, it's like that person, the chances of that person hitting rather than someone that is like, I'm not sure about things. Like I got to be honest, like not to kind of get into the whole thing with Alistair Vallejo, but like the whole idea of like his mom being like, oh, school might be too hard for him. I was like, if he chooses Notre Dame, I don't know how he's going to do. He might be wanting out, like that is a red flag to me. Right. So where, I mean, I don't see anything if it doesn't work out for Fitzgerald in the field, it's because it doesn't work out. It's not because of any other factors. And I really think there's a lot to me that makes me think that he's got a really high floor.
Yeah. So speaking of the Vallejo piece of that, when they visit for the first time and then and then you hear something like that from a parent and it's Notre Dame, it's like, that usually goes the wrong way kind of thing. Right. But it's one of those things like when you haven't really visited, when someone hasn't visited, and something like this could happen with Fitzgerald, right? Like it's not out of the realm of possibility. Right. So we have to keep our mind open to that. But, I think his dad kind of also knowing what Notre Dame's about. Right. And I think that's another part of it where he's been a professional football player. Did Larry Fitzgerald ever actually play at Notre Dame? I can't remember that.
I don't think they played at Notre Dame. He played against Notre Dame.
Yeah. It was right? the 04 game or the 03 game.
Yeah.
It was one of those where Notre Dame wasn't very good and they kind of beat them. I think that was the Julius Jones game, if I recall correctly, where Julius Jones set the Notre Dame record for most yards in a game. But he knows what Notre Dame's about. And so that I think that kind of going into it helps Notre Dame a good amount there. Braden Robinson is also going to be on campus, and he's another one after Notre Dame loses Cohen Brown. You really want to get Braden Robinson. There's been some positive momentum on him in Notre Dame. Buy or sell Braden Robinson committing to Notre Dame, because I think the last time we did a buy or sell on recruiting, he was a sell for both of us. I think that might have flipped. Where do you come out on that?
I mean, okay, I don't like these buy or sell ones because I'm making predictions on things that I don't really know about. I'm not in his head. I have no idea.
For sure. This is just the exercise of the vibes, right? Yeah. We're not making predictions here. This isn't Matt. If what we say here is very different than Matt putting in something on the board.
Yeah.
Right? So let's just put that out there for people.
Absolutely.
We're talking vibes based and based on reporting from Christian as well.
I just have a feeling that I'll just sell it, and maybe I'm wrong, but I'm just going to sell it. I'm still going to sell it just because I think that I think there's just a little bit of redundancy. He's a little bit different than him, but there's a little bit of redundancy with Bubba Frazier. And I also think that just the whole idea of a guy like this, where I think he can be obviously dynamic and he's got great talent. But I just don't know if they're going to really how bad, I think they want him because they need receivers, obviously. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't think if we're kind of breaking it down, it's if you're going to say, well, does Notre Dame need a Viper or do they need a defensive tackle at defensive line? You say, well, they need more defensive tackle. Right. So I think I kind of view it in that way. And just kind of because of that, I would lean towards sell.
Okay. I'm gonna buy, just because I think the reason that we were both in sell is that we thought that it was just a kind of a Miami thing. And I did not think that, coming off the visit to Miami and now hearing that Notre Dame might have some momentum there, that's not something I expected. I kind of expected this to be over by now. So the fact that he's coming to Notre Dame makes me think that something has changed in that recruitment. That can happen all the time, right? And like it just kind of goes to show, like when we do buy or sell here, we're basically providing an update for kind of how things have gone, because they like things can truly change in real time with recruiting, and we've seen it a bunch. So like, you know, I kick around the idea, like you said, like he's very redundant with Bubba Frazier. I think they're different types of players though, like even though they're both kind of smaller.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I would agree with that too. They are different. Like I think he is more jitterbuggy kind of, you know what I mean? Like, and I mean, obviously he is, and then also he is small, like he is different. He is much closer to, God, the Louisville kid that I can't think of off the top of my head, but
Tutu Atwell.
Tutu Atwell. He's more Tutu Atwell-y than you know, just like a who I think Frazier is, right? So I think from that kind of perspective, like they are different. And I also kind of view him as more of like I think he's going to be a returner and stuff too, right? So,
do you see any Jalen Waddle in there?
No, because I think for me, because I think like Jalen Waddle, when I'm talking about like, I think Jalen Waddle is one of those guys that, in terms of where he was at heading into as a prospect going into Alabama and what he was at Alabama, like he's on a very short list of guys who fit that type, you know? So that's why I'm like always kind of, when we're comparing guys and we're looking at these guys that are, you know, truly going to be like elite and what they can be there's just so few guys that have Waddle's like physical frame and become that guy. Yeah. And but like also kind of showed that they were so dominant, because that was one thing that I kind of learned early on in recruiting and like covering this is at especially when it was like at the opening and they were doing these 7-7s, the guys who were slots just ate. They ate all the time. And you'd be like, man, this guy's going to be starting. So Tyon Lindsay from, you know, went to Nebraska, went to Bishop Gorman. Those kind of guys were just like dominant in those 7-on-7. And you're like, wow, this is against the best guys. This guy must be like, and you just realize like, man, like 2 of those guys hit. Like, you know, it's just true. It's just because there's so much more to being a slot than just being like, man, this guy's fast. Because there's a big difference between being a gadget guy and then being a guy who's like really like a vertical threat, a guy who can kind of win underneath and do this, where like Amon-Ra was the best slot receiver that I've ever seen at any of those kind of environments. But he was different. He wasn't like a crazy burner or whatever, right? Like there was a refinement to him. There was strength. He had, didn't have bad speed or anything like that, but he wasn't, it was like a different kind of thing where you could see it translate more to him playing like in just any kind of offense. And where there's very much like a CJ Sanders was like, CJ Sanders was it just absolute elite athletic testing, elite, like, you know, sub 4, you know, what do you call it? Short shuttle, right? Yeah. Sub 4 short shuttle, like ran like a, you know, under, you know, 4.4 something, like was explosive jumper, all these kind of things where you're like, he's awesome. And obviously he was a great returner. But there's a difference there, and I think there was some of it there where you just kind of realize you're like, well, he was kind of missing some things to be like this kind of slot, because you have to be all of these things. It's why like a guy like Julian Edelman was like way better than some guys who were like probably just smoke him in a 40, right? So, and that's why I think I like Braden Robinson. There's some boom to him, obviously, because of his speed and whatever. But I think he kind of has to be a little bit like how Tez Walker was at Oregon, where this guy needs space. you need to get him the ball in space, and then he needs to be able to let him cook there.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how he's going to be like working in traffic as much, because you don't see like him winning in traffic a lot. And that's really kind of what it separates these guys who are like, hey, you got that great speed, or you can also win in traffic.
It's hard too, because like in high school, why would they ever ask him to win?
They're not going to do that a lot, right?
But with someone like Julian Edelman or Cooper Kupp or whoever it might be, whatever, like Troy Brown or someone like that, where it's like they're not burners, so they need to learn how to work in traffic and work in and out of routes and things like that. Chris
Win contested, and
exactly. So it'll be something to monitor. I will say, and I'm sure you agree with this, right? Better to have him on your campus than someone else's campus that you have to then go against, because there's one or two times a game where if you're going against him, like if he was to go to Miami, Notre Dame obviously plays Miami this year. If he was to go to Miami, well, I'd rather have the 10-4 guy on my team than I would rather. So that's kind of I think where we both kind of come out on that type of situation. Okay. Let's change gears a little bit to the Notre Dame football team, because there were some comments. You have shared some things about Bronte Johnson with me and with Mike, and there were some comments from Chris Ash about him as well, and I wanted to highlight that, and I'm sure a little buy or sell on Bronte Johnson. Chris Ash was asked on what he saw from Tay Johnson in the spring. I didn't know much about him, to be honest with you. Then we got out there, and this safety starts showing up and flashing and making a lot of plays. He's got good size. He can run. He's getting his hands on balls, and you can see him breaking out of the middle. Like, man, who the hell is this? And that's when I really started to figure out who he was. He just, all spring, just flashed and made plays. Now, he's not perfect. He gave up some as well, like people do, but he definitely showed some big play potential here this spring. I think when you were on campus for the Irish invasion, you said you saw Bronte Johnson walking around. You said he'd put on a ton of weight. You said probably like, maybe 20, 30 pounds. And obviously
not from the spring, from when he first got to campus.
From when he first got to campus. Correct. And, maybe that's give or take 5 pounds or whatever. It doesn't really matter. The fact is he is completely filled out, and he is a different type of physical player at present. So, I wanted to pose this: buy or sell. Bronte Johnson is Notre Dame's third safety. He would be competing with someone like Luke Talich for that, someone like Jalen Stroman for that. Obviously, Adon Schuler has one of the spots locked up. So he could even be Notre Dame's second safety, but I think making him the third safety is good for this exercise. Could he beat out someone like Luke Talich for that third safety spot in your mind?
I think he's going to be one of the top, he's going to be the second or third. I just think because of everything that Ash said, I just think when there's someone who does that and makes those type of plays, unless they are just like completely being vulnerable, like they make you vulnerable to giving up plays, unless he's making so many mistakes that it's like costing you. I think that's just hard. It's hard to find those playmakers, right? And that's kind of like what you look at, like Houston Griffith was just like the safest guy that you could think of, because he wasn't going to get smoked over the top or anything totally or whatever, but he was never going to make a play. He was never going to make a play that flipped the game, that all of a sudden like that stopped the series or anything like that, right? And I think that's kind of what separated Xavier Watts, was that he was able to do that. And obviously it was a process for Xavier Watts to get there. It didn't happen for him right away, but I think it's such a good sign that Johnson is already doing it, because he hasn't even practiced at safety that much, right? Like, because he had to switch a corner last year. And I just think that, talking to him in the spring and hearing his approach to everything, and you could just tell there's just like a very like I wouldn't even call it a quiet confidence, just a confidence to him and his ability, like what he thought of what he can do. And I think you could see it out there on the field. And I just think that a little bit what Ash was also saying when he was talking about like, what can this guy do? What can this guy handle? And all that kind of stuff too. And that's going to be a process to figure out what exactly he can handle and all that. But when there's someone who can do that and play enough, you have to find that guy a role. He has to find a role. And I think it's going to be too hard to keep him off the field. And man, I'm just so excited about his potential because he is a perfect example of a guy who just didn't have the kind of structure put in place, whether it was like coaching or, nutrition, weight room kind of stuff, to be able to take that step that you would have liked to have seen in high school. But you saw that, man, this guy's like a really good athlete, and he was, talented ball skills and all that kind of stuff. And now you just see him and like, man, he was like, looked like a little kid last year. Now he looks like a man. Now he looks like a man, and it's a big difference.
Yeah. Sly Fox asked, didn't Bronte play wide receiver as well in high school? He played wide receiver. He played quarterback. Played safety. Jamie knows, like, his safety film is not from high school. In my opinion, just not good. Like you could see his ability as a wide receiver and at quarterback. Like, you could see what an athlete he was. He was an absolute athlete. But I mean, we talked a bunch at the time. Like, man, you're only banking on his athletic ability. His safety film in high school is just not up to par. It just isn't. He does. And a lot of it is just like, he has none of the, I mean, you talk about a raw player, like, he had none of the kind of things that you want to see as a safety. Like, he didn't know how to fill. He didn't know where to fill.
I just don't think he was coached.
Yeah. Like I mean, it's pretty clear now at this point. And to see him now, or hear about him now, where it's like he put on the weight, first of all, like, that takes an amazing amount of commitment. It just an incredible amount of commitment on his part to put on that type of weight. That's just not easy. And this short amount of time too. He was just a freshman last year. It'd be one thing if he was like a junior, senior looking like this. Like, now he's putting on, he's obviously committed to it. He made play. I mean, they put him at corner. So obviously he was picking up the defense. They actually put him in games. And so then to hear about his ascent from, the coaches, you have a new coach now who's talking about him. I mean, these are everything that you want to hear from it. It's kind of like Carson Hobbs and how we talked about him this spring, about how he kind of made the jump. It's like everything that you wanted to see from him, you saw it. This is the same thing for Bronte Johnson. And the thing is like, I love Luke Talich. I think he's a really good player. I do. I think a potential Luke Talich, Bronte Johnson pairing in the back end has a lot of possibilities for Notre Dame. But I think Bronte Johnson might just be better. It might be a case of, hey, Luke Talich is a good player. Bronte Johnson might just be better. So that's going to be something to monitor. Jason Smith says, raw like Snead. I worse than Snead. I'm telling you, his film was not good. It just wasn't.
I think it's very different too.
Yeah. It's different, but Jalen Snead to me was like, oh, you could see lots of flashes.
Way more.
Yeah.
That's why he was ranked way higher, right?
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
You don't just get put into a spot and you're a 5-star and you're ranked there for a reason, right? So I think it's very different, where Snead was obviously like moving around positions and doing all these things. But you could see like the skills like translate more on defense, where you saw some stuff from Johnson, but it was all on offense. All on offense. And I mean, I've seen him at camps too. He was another guy who was like, at invasion and all that. And you could see like, man, this guy's like, there's something here, but there's still like a long, like, it was going to be a long process, because you're projecting him at something that he isn't good at yet. Like he hasn't even really shown that much yet. But I mean, that happens all the time, right? It happens all the time. And it's about projection. It's about you thinking like, hey, I think this kid is smart. He just hasn't been shown, or I think this kid is an athlete. He hasn't been shown this. And we're going to develop him. And it's an absolute credit to Johnson, obviously, for sure, where he's in, but it's a credit to the coaching staff and, the support staff and all that for its development. That's what it is.
Yeah. I think many people saw yesterday that the Arkansas game now has a time. It is it's 9 a.m. Pacific, 12 Eastern time, 11 Central time. I think would be a Central kickoff, right? Is
it's
that
11.
correct? So
it's 11. Yeah, 11 local. Yeah,
right. So 11 local time. It's funny. I made a joke on Twitter because like the time got announced and like 90 people are putting out their little tweets, about the time and stuff, and they add the graphic and all that stuff. Twitter's funny like that. But so look, that's they're after the Purdue game, which of course Purdue is after Texas A&M. That's 2 straight home games. They go on the road. It's a true road game against Arkansas. I know you've done a little bit of research on Arkansas as an opponent. Buy or sell, Arkansas is a sneaky opponent in 2025.
I think they're definitely a sneaky opponent. They're just one of these teams that their record, last year, obviously they were like a borderline bowl team, and they made it to a bowl game, but we're a top 40 team in F plus. They're 38th in S&P plus projections heading into the season. They lost a bunch of guys in the portal. They also have like taken shots at with some guys that were really highly ranked guys that didn't hit at other schools, and they're trying to see if they hit for them there. But they've had some success with some of those guys who've become good players for them there. It's like a totally new roster in so many senses, in terms of like there's a lot of like turnover. I mean, receiver is like a brand new, like everything's brand new. Offensive line, it's going to look very different, and the offensive line wasn't good last year, but I think they do have a chance to be a bit better there. I don't think they're going to be great, and they've added at least some like intriguing guys at receiver that were group of 5 guys, but the last, like Andrew Armstrong was a D2 All-American kid, and you would think, okay, well, he's going to the SEC, it's going to win. Nah, he was like a really good receiver in the SEC. So they've kind of shown that they've been able to find some of these guys there that I think can hit for them. I think they have way more questions on defense, where I don't think their defensive line is nearly good enough. I think they have some players at linebacker, and their secondary is like, there's big questions in the secondary. So I would question them like how much they can stop Notre Dame from like running the football. Well, I think that is going to be something that to watch there, because I just don't think they have really like top end talent, like what they need on defense. But Taylon Green is one of those guys where he is very bipolar in terms of like he can be the good version of him shows up, and it's like, man, they can beat anybody.
Yeah,
if that guy shows up. I mean, he's 6'6", 230. He's got a big time arm, and he's an athlete who can run. So that's not a guy everyone would rather face a 6'2" pocket quarterback than a guy like that. But he took a lot of sacks last year. He, again, in certain games, he was really bad with his turnover worthy plays, and should have probably had way more picks than he had. So does that guy kind of take a step? Does he become way better this year? And if he does, that makes him an intriguing team to say, like, maybe they can pull off an upset. They beat Tennessee at home last year, and no one would have said they had any business doing that. They almost beat Texas at home. It was a very close game. So, and the weirdness of it being like an 11 local game. I mean, I think you would think that's maybe better crowd wise, because it's not like there's going to be like a ton of well, I mean, for sure there'll be drunk people, but not as drunk as it would be like a night game or something like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It could, I as a sneaky opponent for sure, but I do think that because Notre Dame doesn't really play other than Miami, this is kind of like the other big like road game where you're like, this is going to be an environment you really have to prepare for. Mm-hmm. And I think Notre Dame will be kind of up for it. But it's also like how kind of things are structured. Notre Dame plays four of their first 5 games are top 40 opponents, and they only play like I think 6 top 40 opponents a whole season. Based on S&P Plus projections. So, so it's gonna be. They play 5 actually. So because USC is the only one that isn't. So it's like, we'll see, because how healthy are they after the kind of thing. There's just a lot of factors that I think could play into making that like a sneaky tough game.
Yeah. I think it's good that it's after Purdue. So it's like Purdue's kind of the sleepy game, and then you go on the road. And I think it's kind of like we have to face a real team now. I think that works for them. Like if it was after A&M or something, then I'd be a little bit more like, yeah, that's kind of, I don't love that. But I think after Purdue helps. Steven Solkowski says we've reached the level like in peak Holtz years where we should push around teams like Arkansas, especially in a road game. The thing is, like in a vacuum, that's true. These games aren't playing in a vacuum though, right? Like I think Arkansas is the type of team, and Jamie kind of highlighted it, where, man, they'll have 3 or 4 games a year where it's like this team kind of stinks. Like they kind of are stinky smelly. And then they'll have 3 or 4 games a year. It's like, Arkansas, they're kind of tricky, right? Like it's like you said about the quarterback. Like you catch him on a good day, and it's like, he's kind of a problem, right? You catch him on a bad day, and it's like this guy, he doesn't have it. But it's like, I think that's kind of the nature of college football now, where like 6 and 6, 7 and 5 teams. It's it's kind of like USC last year. Like, sure, USC lost a lot of games that they shouldn't have lost, and then they were winning in the fourth quarter. But it's not like they don't have good players, and it's not like they're terrible. Like, no, they just find ways to lose. And then like Notre Dame, it's the same kind of deal where it's like that game was tied at halftime. Notre Dame, found a way to pull away from them second half, and then they threw a lot of pick sixes, right? But obviously that game was competitive, right? And I could see Arkansas being that kind of similar type thing where it's like Notre Dame is clearly better, but these other teams, they got some pretty good football players over there. So,
well, I think too, like if you look at like say Georgia Tech last year, I think if Haynes King had started that game,
yeah, for sure,
and it kind of started the way that it did, like that could have been a game that went deep into the fourth quarter.
Yeah.
And I still think Notre Dame would have won, but they wouldn't have maybe been in as much control in the second half as they were. Right. So I think there's, it to me, it has that kind of vibes. It's like where do I think that Notre Dame probably should win by at least a couple scores? Yeah, of course. I definitely think they should. It doesn't mean that it might not be a game for quite a while. And, Marcus Freeman, it's his job, just like it's like after Northern Illinois to be like, okay, we got to do this. Yeah. It's his job to be like, this team beat Tennessee last year. They did this, they did that. So no matter, and they're also going to, I think based on who they play before, don't think they play a tough team before. Like, I think it's like kind of set up for them to have like a good record going in. So they're going to, probably be feeling themselves, feeling a little bit more confident. And, but like Steven said, if Notre Dame is a real whatever, they'll smack them, and hopefully that's the case.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, if they come in with confidence, then, like when a team hasn't been shown to be not good yet, right? Then they play just a little bit better, right? Or they have an expectation that things are going to go well. You can have an expectation things are going to go well with your media company if you go with VSR. If you need something for your social media page or your small business and their website or your highlight reel, then you can go with them. VSR Media, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy Award-winning anchor Vakid Sadrazadeh, VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or are aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Speaking of the media, Jamie, we have there's been a lot of media kind of talk around Dallas Golden, who's on campus right now. Christian had an interview with him just prior to him arriving at Notre Dame. There's been a lot of talk about him going both ways.
There you go, Greg.
Of course, dude. This is my moment.
This is the dream.
This is what I've been waiting for. And you know what? It's being like openly talked about now with like Joey O'Brien as well. And first of all, I want everyone to acknowledge that I was not wrong about the Kyle Hamilton piece.
No, you were not wrong.
And there were people who gave me problems, and they know who they are, and they should apologize. It doesn't have to be public, but it should be to me personally, at least. They should apologize to me, and we are ready.
Just shoot him a DM, folks.
I will shoot him a DM. If you gave me grief, I wait. All right, I'm waiting. Christian wrote in his piece, Golden was a star on both sides of the ball and special teams in high school, but is being brought in to play corner for the Irish. For his part, he's ready to do whatever he's asked. Just doing whatever's best for the team, he said. For me, being able to strive where coach puts me, so that's really what I'm most looking forward to, just doing my part. Jamie, are you buying or selling the idea of Dallas Golden bowling both ways?
I mean, I'm sorry to do this to you, man, but I'm selling it. I just think that it is one of these things where I sell it. I will buy it later on as a possibility, but I'm not going to buy it as a freshman. I think if he would have came in January, maybe, he has too much. You got to come in and you got to catch up on a lot. And one of the things that why guys like Leonard Moore and Benjamin Morrison were able to come in the summer and really like hit the ground running is they like dove in right away and were able to kind of like, they knew the defense, like they were like on it when they got in, and it put them in a position where they were able to compete right away. And there's still like going to be competition at corner there. And I think with him specifically, where he's someone that when you watch him play corner, he needs a lot of work, like technical work. I mean, obviously he has great athletic ability and he could just, sky's the limit.
Ball player
for sure. But I think there's going to be steps to that for him. Because even something like what happened with Bronte Johnson, that is like a unique thing for some guy to come into like his kind of second or his first spring, because he wasn't early enrollee, like, and all of a sudden he just really kind of just takes off from there. And I think they're going to need like one of the freshmen to play at corner this year, and he's a prime candidate. I mean, obviously, Zachary and Cree Thomas already been on campus, and Zachary's Mark Zachary's a candidate too. Mm-hmm. Just think that they'll want him to at least have a mastery of that before they feel kind of comfortable to do it. And I also get the vibes too from like Mike Denbrock is like, he is very much like, he doesn't want to just put somebody in, like, you got to kind of know what's going on there. And he will be kind of picky about them doing that. But yes, I mean, I'm not going to say I'm not intrigued by the idea of him being something, or maybe him being like the punt returner or something like that. I could see that.
Yeah. I'm going to dazzle you right now. Okay.
All right.
I agree. I this is a sell.
And here we go.
Yeah. The reason is I think you kind of touched on it. Like, all my favorite Dallas Golden stuff on offense is him as like a running back or like the Wildcat.
Yeah, Wildcat quarterback. Yeah.
And like, they obviously don't need that, right? Like,
no,
give it to Jeremiah Love instead.
Yeah.
Like I was, it's funny. I was it's Eric Thomas from 247. He sent me a DM. We were talking about this, and he's like, I want to see Bryce Young at like goal line running back and stuff. And I was like, to be honest, that'd be kind of fun, but like Notre Dame fans don't like it when like running backs get carries and Jeremiah Love doesn't, right? So like I think that that should be kind of the priority for them. But so like I don't know that they actually, because so the reason that I was so on Kyle and even Joey O'Brien is because they had something or have something that the team didn't really have, was that size. You could just throw it up to them. You could give them a mismatch where it's like, so what is Dallas Golden? Like, was he going to be like a slot? They obviously don't need slots. Like, are they going to put him to the field, right? You're going to play him over Will Pauling? Is that what we're doing? You're going to play him over Faison, right? Like, is that what we're doing? Like, so to me, it's like, well, they don't really have a need for it. I like the idea of it. Like you said, like, I like the put him on like kickoff return. Like, that's cool to me. So that's kind of how I feel. And like Notre Dame does need, like, they need an elite corner, right? And he could be that, right? So try to be an elite corner first, like the whole thing with Travis Hunter, it was like he came in and was elite, right?
Yeah.
Already.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And so it was kind of like, okay, like that's cool. But, I don't know that Dallas Golden is elite yet. I think he could become that way. And I expect him to become that way. Like, he's a very good football player, but I don't know, Jamie. I agree with you. I like the idea, but I don't really see a need for it with his skill set on this particular team. Maybe when he's older, maybe when he's more physically filled out, maybe when he's established himself as a corner or whatever it might be, then you put him to the field and then you do that. But right now,
Kyle Hamilton too is a perfect example of like, even though he came in and he was like lights out right away, like he was very good, like picking off, Phil Dracovic like 5 million times in practice. It still probably wouldn't have been a good idea to put him at receiver right away. The argument, which you were correct, was his last year. They should have just thrown the ball in the red zone like that. It feels like that felt like a no-brainer.
Yeah,
that felt like a no-brainer, especially based on who they had at receiver at that time. So, I think that's the way you got to kind of look at it. As it's like you said, there's a difference between Travis Hunter, where you were like, oh, this guy's like high level at these things already the moment he walked on campus, where I think Dallas Golden has got a chance to be really special, but I think it's not going to be as easy as, you got to be like a true savant to be like, I picked up the offense and I picked up the defense at the same time. Like, what? Like, that's just not normal for most people to be able to do that.
Yeah. I do like that we have advanced the ball on this conversation, though. It has become not taboo to say, because at the time it was truly like, what are you thinking? What if he gets hurt and all this other stuff? And it's like, come on, man, this is big boy stuff. We need to do that. And by the way, speaking of 2019, his freshman season, I have it under good authority that there was a plan to put him in the red zone, and Clark Lee said no, and I'll never forgive him. I'm never forgive him for that. He's a good guy, right? I'll never get over it. So it's his fault. All right, and Brian Kelly was on board. That's the thing. But then Brian Kelly didn't have the ability to say, you know what, we're doing it anyway. But that's fine. That's fine. We move on. All right. Where it is. Okay. Speaking of needing to get the ball to Jeremiah Love, Jamie. Look, it's been talked about. Jeremiah Love had a conversation with Pete Nakos of On3 talking about his Heisman chance. He said he wanted to go for it. He said it's something to be cool to go for. And, he's kind of embracing that, which I kind of appreciate. Like, look, if you're thinking that, then say it and make it true, right? Not everything has to be, the cookie cutter. It's all about the team and stuff. If you feel like you want to do something, then go do it, right? And so I'm gonna put this up as a buy or sell. Jeremiah Love makes a Heisman run, and I'm going to add some Mike Denbrock quotes from the conversation that they had with the media on Jeremiah Love, on the next step for Jeremiah Love. I think for him, just understanding he's got the ability and will show the ability to everybody that he can be an every down back. He's somebody who has the versatility necessary to not only be electric out of the backfield, but be electric as somebody who can run and catch the football. If that means on third down, if JD's in the game at tailback, he's in the game as one of the wide receivers, then that's what it means. But also using him out of the backfield more on some option routes and different things where he's got an opportunity to kind of break people down in space and catch the football and do something special with it. I do think if he is to make a Heisman run, he does have to have some big time plays out of the backfield, right? Whatever it might be. You know, and I mean like more than screen stuff. I mean talking like he catches a post or he catches a go ball like Cam Scatterbo did against Texas in that game. It's got to be something like that. Buy or sell. Jeremiah Love is going to have this in his bag to make a run, right? So let's just say makes a run. He ends up in New York.
I'm going to buy it just because I think that the way that they've talked about him there. I mean, this is all assuming he stays healthy, obviously, because that's going to be the biggest thing, because they're not going to like put him at risk if he's, you know, banged up like he was at the end of the year like that. Right. So, but I think when you're talking about this kind of stuff and they already, even if you think like last year was a step in that direction where they were like, hey, we were like giving him reps at receiver and he was learning more there. It's pretty clear they want to do more stuff with him there. Mm-hmm. And I think it might even been as simple as like, hey, they connected on the one thing that we've talked about like 5 million times already in the Texas A&M game, where if they connect on that, I guarantee you they throw him the ball like probably 20 more times during the entire year. You know, he's getting 20 more targets based on that play alone, and they're doing so much more with him. And I think it's also one of these things where he's such a weapon. Everybody, the defense knows he's such a weapon. You want to give the defense something to worry about all the time and be like, oh my God, Love's out here. Right. Like that's the kind of thing. Like, I always think of like Marshall Faulk to me is the epitome of like, man, elite runner, elite receiver. Like there wasn't, I can't really think of anyone I think was as good at both. You know, it's
just like actually as a receiver,
right?
Like Christian McCaffrey's doing a lot of that option route.
McCaffrey is probably, but he hasn't been used, even though there was talk about he could be a slot or whatever, but he hasn't really been used in the way that Falk was when he was with the Rams,
they would put him out to like the field. He would run like a post or a go or something.
Yeah. and I think one of the things with you know, Falk was you didn't see that. You didn't know that about him in college because, I mean, they gave him the rock in he'd run for 300 yards in a game right at San Diego State. Right. So it's one of those things where they didn't have to worry about it. And I'm not saying they're going to just all of a sudden just switch to that and not give Love the ball as a runner. But we always talk about like getting your best guys out there, and there's so much of it is just like, even if he's the decoy out there to kind of do these things, why wouldn't you want to add more explosive? We're talking about getting more explosive on offense. Well, that's a guy who could just give you like 3 extra 50-yard pass plays in a season. And that could be the difference between winning and losing, or blowing a team out, or, you know, it being close, right? Like, so I think it's on the table. I think you're going to see he's going to have big all-purpose numbers this year, where he is going to be the clear top back in the country, and that would put him there. I just think he's too talented to not, and they obviously know he's that.
Yeah. And I think there's got to be like a ton of pressure on Mike Denbrock, where it's like, you have this guy, you know, like you have the guy that every coordinator in the country wants. And it's like, if you don't use this skill set to the fullest, then it's kind of like, I mean, what am I doing? Right. Like, what am I hoping for? Right. There's a what am I hoping for aspect to him. I mean, Kyle's like that too. Like, you can have that on defense as well. Like Kyle Hamilton, Jalen Smith, you know, guys like that, where it's like, man, if you have these guys and you can't get the most out of it, then shoot, man, what do you want? Like, what are you recruiting these guys to do? So, we'll see. I kind of agree with you. Like, I do think, will he get to New York? I mean, that's kind of difficult, right? Like, usually it's quarterbacks. It's been a long time since it's actually been a running back, but I do think it'll be in the conversation, because look, if Josh Adams can get into the conversation, then Jeremiah Love can get into the conversation. And the fact that he's talking about it is also kind of lends itself to that as well. All right, let's do some quick fire recruiting stuff on vibes. Buy or sell. Kadon Finley commits to Notre Dame eventually. I'm going to sell this. I'll just put it out there. I just think once Texas is involved, they get the last visit. I just think it'll end up there. I think Notre Dame's done a good job recruiting him. It just seems like once Texas turned up the heat, it just trended in that way. That's just my opinion. What do you think, Jamie?
Yeah, I'll agree with you. I think it could easily go either way. I just get the vibe that you just saw things kind of flip with it.
Yeah.
Where that's not the vibe you get with like Thomas Davis. Like George Offer, it's like, okay, he took a visit, but it's not the same thing there where you're like, they haven't made him like, okay, we're going to get Thomas Davis and this is that. And Thomas Davis is like, well, I always kind of wanted this or whatever. Like that's not the vibe, the same vibe. So obviously it's a massive weekend for this, and we'll see. We'll see how it goes, but that's the way I'm leaning to.
The only thing with him is, and we can get to this too, with Joey O'Brien, buying or selling on him, committing to Notre Dame eventually, like, and Kari Adams falls into this as well. Like, these are big time players. And I think if Joey O'Brien gets there, and I do think there's a chance that Joey O'Brien is going to like kind of feel it and feel the vibes. And when you get those types of guys around each other and you have commits on campus as well, and you get Devin Fitzgerald, who's kind of like, I want to go to Notre Dame, or Braden Robinson, who are like, I kind of want to go to Notre Dame, and then it's like, well, we can all be a part of this class. And what an amazing class this would be. I think the fact that they're all on campus together helps specifically with O'Brien, Kari Adams, and Finley. I think that's their kind of puncher's chance at this. Where it's like Finley, it's like, you know what, for a long time, I kind of felt like Notre Dame was going to be the place for me. And I don't want to go to Texas just because, my dad went there, or because they decided that I'm going to be a priority for them. Like, I do think that is a true thing where it's like, however Texas wants to sell it, he wasn't their main guy for a long time.
Yeah.
And I don't, they could talk themselves however they like. And obviously they've done a pretty good job with that. But the fact is the fact that Notre Dame has been on him longer. And so I have buy or sell. Joey O'Brien comes to Notre Dame. Like, I am going to buy this. Like, I think Notre Dame will get it done. And the reason I think that is because, I had heard from someone like way back in like January where they ran into Mike Mickens somewhere at some outing, and they asked him like, "Oh, who do you really want?" Like, and this was, like I said, way back in January, and he was like, Joey O'Brien. Like, he wanted him way back then. And it was like, man, if Mike Mickens really wants a guy, when Notre Dame really wants a guy, like, I'm just going to put my faith in them that they can get it done. Doesn't mean that they will, right? It's just like they got to this point. He didn't commit anywhere else. He changed the visit and then made sure that he went to Notre Dame. Like, I think that's meaningful as well. I'm going to give Notre Dame that kind of benefit of the doubt that they're going to get it done. And so that's kind of how I stand with him. Where are you at with this, Gene?
I feel the same way. I mean, you're agreeing a lot, but I just have a feeling that Notre Dame planned this out the exact right way, where they like knew like this is when we have to be the last.
Yeah,
we have to be the last, because it does seem like Penn State had him on campus too early, and he didn't commit, and that was the thing. They needed to lock it down, and then he's like, oh, Oregon, and he's Clemson, and I think those might even be ahead of Penn State at this time, because it's like more fresh, and there's a lot of, obviously those are two really great programs, and they play really high level ball, and they're going to be national championship contenders. There's a lot of flash there, but I just think that I just have a feeling that this is going to be one that, like, Mickens, Chris Ash, Mike Martin, Marcus Freeman, it is going to be like, this is going to be full on full court press. And I just got, it's just a vibe that I think that they're going to get it done.
Yeah. Vibes, total vibes based on that. But look, there's a ton of info, Jason put in the chat, looking forward to hearing how the visits go. Christian's got a ton of info already from the guys going into the visits on everyone. He's talked to everyone going into the visits. He's going to have a ton of info coming out of the visits. Matt's going to have a ton of info coming out of the visits. So get locked into irishsportsdaily.com. There's going to be a ton of info and nuggets, and what Matt's hearing and what Christian's hearing and things like that. There's going to be an intel out tomorrow. Christian already kind of put like a primer on the message board as well, so you can check that out there. It's huge. It's a huge weekend that Notre Dame has coming up, and so we're going to cover it at Irish Sports Daily as best as we can. And then we'll be back on Monday talking about it with Mike on Power Hour, and then we'll be back on Tuesday to kind of see how things go. So that'll be our show for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please hit that like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whenever it is, we are going live. Again, we'll be back on Monday. Check out irishsportsdaily.com for all the latest with the recruits. And have a good weekend, everyone. We'll talk to you soon. Happy Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, Jamie. Happy Father's Day to all of you.
Happy Father's Day
out
to you.
there. Yes, sir. Happy Father's Day to all of you out there. Have a good, pleasant weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Keep hitting and hustling.